Looks like it. Welcome, sports fans. Decided to do this at the last second because I wanted to test drive doing this stream before going into Thursday's draft. So decided to do this today. And while I'm testing the stream, let's do a mock draft because why not? Everybody else is doing one, so what? Here's so why not? Here, and I'm also working out the kinks and how all this works. And here, and just want to see how here, see what you're doing this on a tablet, because keep in mind I am not doing this on a PC or anything. This is strictly done again on my tablet here. I could do it on the phone, but the tablet works much better here as far as quality. So it looks like everything's working just fine. So sorry about that. That's going to happen, by the way, with this Wi-Fi connection I have here. Here, sometimes it's just going to go in and out. Okay, so now they got me working out these little things that I'm looking at down below to see what the heck they are even going to do. I said I was going to do a mock draft, and I will do a mock draft. And I decided this is going to be a no trade mock draft because trades are just too hard to try to figure out. So I'm going to do the mock draft without the trades, and afterward, then I'll discuss who who might trade up or down and who for. And it's probably going to be probably just what my takes are, what a lot of people are thinking as well, especially for certain positions like running back. But we'll get to that later. So let's start off here with our number one pick, and that would go to the Carolina Panthers, who a month or so ago traded with the Chicago Bears for, and they gave away a lot for that pick. They gave away quite a lot. They gave away their top wideout in DJ Moore. They gave away first and second round picks, I think, this year and next year. I need to look back because it's been a while since that happened. And I think it's pretty much clear cut what position that Carolina needs and what they're going for as far as who's going to take number one overall, and that would be obviously quarterback. As far as who, it has been a while since. I mean, we've since they made that trade, it's kind of gone back and forth. Like, we first thought it was going to be Bryce Young for sure. Then, as time went on, we thought it was going to be C.J. Stroud. Then, as we got getting closer and closer to the draft, it seems like, especially after Bryce Young canceled his visits here about, I think last week it was, which is one of the hints. If you're canceling your visits this close to the draft, that probably is a tell that you're going to be 1-1. So this is probably what every mock draft is going to be, is that Carolina will draft Bryce Young number one overall. So let's just get that out of the way, that Carolina is going to pick Bryce Young one overall. Again, I don't have a PC, so I can't I want to put it on. No, maybe I can here. Let me see if I can on this thing here. I'm not even sure if I can. even chat on here. It looks like I can't chat. It looks like I don't really see if anyone chats on here. So maybe I could chat on here through my phone. I don't know if that could work like that or not. But actually, let me see if I can. So that way I don't have to like keep looking back and I see there's one person watching, and I think I know who that one person is. So let me see if I can try this here. If not on Thursday, I'm just gonna get like a big dry erase board, and just write in the background. So keep track on who is where and who got selected by who. Let's see if that did anything there. Oh, there you go. It actually worked. So okay, so I'm probably gonna do that here throughout, so I can like not just write down, but see on there where here who said what. And Carolina, by the way, they had another need. It's not like quarterback was their only need. Just real quick on Carolina, they do have the quarterback. Obviously, they're going to take a 1 overall. Their other needs, I went through a couple of them, a couple of sites. I went through CBS. I went through NFL.com. CBS gave it like a bunch of needs on there for all the teams. NFL.com only did their top 3 needs, and CBS and NFL.com, they share. Obviously, quarterback is a need, which they'll address at 1-1. Another need is obviously wide receiver because they got rid of DJ Moore. They did get Adam Thielen from the Minnesota Vikings, so that's going to help Bryce Young, which I presume it will be Bryce Young. They did get Miles Sanders at running back here. That was actually a pretty decent add-on here that they got. So, as also got Von Bell at safety. So, ramp up that defense a little bit here. That's a wide open division, by the way. Here, the NFC South, anyone can win that division. There's no clear cut. Okay, this team's going to win, and this team is going to suck. All 4 teams are going in this division. They could have an argument on winning that division. It could take 8 wins to win that division, even though I think somebody in there is going to go 9-8, or if someone catches fire, maybe 10-7. That could be a far-fetched one, but the NFC South is wide open, and Carolina getting Bryce Young, even though they do have it. They did add Andy Dalton to the mix on their QB depth chart, which I think Andy Dalton will be their starting quarterback in week 1. I don't think it's time to rush Bryce Young in there real quick. Or even if they went crazy and drafted CJ Stroud, it's the same thing. I think Andy Dalton is your week 1 starter if you're Carolina, barring an injury, obviously. They did add Hayden Hurst, and tight end is a need, but they did add Hayden Hurst. That's a pretty good add-on. Cornerback is also a need. Edge rusher, between the 2 sites that I looked at, edge rusher, they both said that that's one of their glaring needs, and it is, especially in a division that's so wide open. And Atlanta's adding a lot on defense too, so Carolina adding on defense here, that's going to be a big need, even though they only have 6 picks this year. So anyway, so that's Carolina's plight. They will draft, I think, not just mock-wise. I think unless they do something really crazy, unless Bryce Young does something really drastic within the next 2 days, Bryce Young's going to be 1 overall, unless they fall in love with CJ Stroud at some point, which I don't see it happening. It seemed like it at some point, and I did like CJ Stroud's performance in that semifinal game against Georgia. He was awesome in that game. He was awesome in the bowl game, the Rose Bowl game the year before against Utah. So, CJ Stroud, I think, will be the second quarterback taken. Now the question is he going to be 1-2 as far as the draft overall? Which this is one of the first big questions going into Thursday night is what's Houston going to do with the number 2 overall pick? So while I'm writing this down here, the Houston Texans are Houston Texans are in this weird spot, and it's going back to that crazy 4th and 20 play on week 18 against the Indianapolis Colts. All of the defender of Indianapolis had to do was bat that ball down, and we're talking about Houston drafting Bryce Young 1 overall, and Chicago doing whatever with their 2nd overall pick. Would they have traded the pick that? Would they have traded number 2 overall? Probably, but it's that 4th and 20 play, and then the 2-point conversion that they converted right after was that changed the landscape of this draft drastically. Houston was looking at probably drafting Bryce Young at 1 overall until that play, which for Chicago Bears fans, they love Lovie Smith even more because they did have 1-1, but now that they traded it and got a huge compensation from Carolina here, they love Lovie Smith even more now. So anyway, let digress. Back to Houston here. Their 3 biggest needs are the 3 common needs that I've seen is obviously quarterback, edge rusher is a big need, wide receiver is also a need. Did sign Robert Woods. Got Jimmy Ward out of San Francisco at safety. Tight end Dalton Schultz, they also got too. That could be a sleeping add on. I'm not saying Houston's going to thrive to a 9-8 record with Dalton Schultz. Here, let's not get too crazy about that. However, I mean, who else did they add? Oh, they added Case Keenum as a. Is he going to be the week 1 starter? I don't know because I don't even know what Houston's going to do. Houston could easily trade this number 2 pick, which I'm hearing rumors that's even going to happen. That could happen. Depends on if they get the right suitor. And again, who is it? Who Houston wants? Do they want Trey Lance? Does San Fran want to get rid of Trey Lance and get the number 2 overall pick? Because we don't know if Brock Purdy is going to be ready by week 1, and he might not be. This stream is not sponsored, by the way, but Houston could trade 2, but since I'm doing a mock job that is no trades, I'm just going to say CJ Stroud is going to be. I'm just going to say CJ Stroud is going to be 1-2. I mean, there's a lot of question marks behind that pick. A lot of question marks behind that pick and behind what Houston can do because I'm hearing rumors they just might not even draft QB at all, and they just might take Will Anderson, which, again, edge is one of their needs. It is a glaring need. So it's Brian. I just mentioned the dang bottle there that I said this wasn't sponsored, and then he just said that here the stream was brought to you by the number 9. But watch that movie, I think, too much. For those of you, Houston could draft Will Anderson, but I'd say that's like a 5% probability, if not lower. I would say 80% they're going to draft CJ. I'm hearing reports that maybe Will Levis might get selected 2 overall, but I'm like, I don't think there's been enough film or enough evidence to prove that he should be the second quarterback taken over CJ. I mean, I have arguments that Anthony Richardson might be a better quarterback than Will Levis. But more on them later. More on them two later. We now go to the Arizona Cardinals. Woof, the Arizona Cardinals. They're going to be in for a long year, and I told Brian, I said this is probably my odds-on favorite to who's going to be 1-1 next year, because Arizona, because they're going to miss Kyler Murray for a good portion of probably maybe the entire first half of the season. We don't know how long it's going to take for him to be fully ready. I wouldn't be the least bit shocked if he sat the entire year. Arizona wouldn't like that. They just paid the guy. I'm like, they don't want to pay Kyler a whole year to sit. But, I don't know. Arizona's going to be a hot mess this year. I would be stunned with the injuries they have. Buda Baker wants out. DeAndre Hopkins wants out. J.J. Watt's retired. I mean, if Arizona wins more than 5 games, I'll be shocked. Here, I'll just leave it at that. Now, as far as their needs, offensive line is a need, corner is a need, and the defensive line. That's been the 3 that I've commonly seen amongst other sites. Although with Will Anderson being there, he's the top prospect that's not a quarterback. I would think, unless they get, and there's another team that could trade out, and if the price is right, and someone who may need Will Anderson may call up Arizona, or someone who may want C.J. Stroud if Houston passes on him. I feel like Arizona's pick is going to rely on what Houston does. If Houston passes on C.J. Stroud, then there's going to be a lot of GMs on the phone with Arizona and saying, okay, what do you want for the 3? Because they want to go get C.J. I don't think there's going to be a lot less phone calls over Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. I got a suspicion that those guys may fall a little bit. But more on that later. Anyway, Arizona, good luck. That's all I can say. Just draft Will Anderson and pray. So now we go to the Indianapolis Colts, and this may be another one that might get traded. Here, but again, the Indy may trade if they don't get there. I mean, maybe they could trade up. I don't know. I don't see Houston and Indy trading places. They're division rivals. I just don't see it happening. I think Indy's just going to be stuck at 4 because unless they don't get the guy they want, maybe they want to trade down, which that's a possibility. Indy trading down for 4, and maybe someone wants Tyree Wilson at 4 if Indy is not satisfied with Anthony Richardson, or if they feel like they can get him later, or Will Levis, same thing. They may think they can get them later than 4. Maybe trade down, get some compensation. And but that one I think is the more far-fetched one of any of the previous trades I mentioned. But I think Indy with their situation, they're starting over. They're obviously in need of a quarterback. Hands down. Offensive guard they need, but that can be later. corner is also a name, but they can get down the second round. The cornerback class is a very deep class. Basically, the only thing they lost, I mean, the most notable thing they lost was Stephon Gilmore to the Cowboys. That was basically one of their main losses of the whole night, or the whole offseason, excuse me. But I'd say now which one? Although I'm not exactly crazy about Anthony Richardson throwing the ball on the ceiling, because what the heck is that going to do in real life or in real football game situations? I mean, to me, that was just looking like he was just showing off or something like that. I didn't understand. I was like, oh, he hit the ceiling. I'm like, okay, and so, I mean, if it's between him and Will Levis, I would just say Anthony Richardson. So, Indianapolis will get Anthony Richardson at 4 overall. So now we're to the Seattle Seahawks, and this, other than the Carolina pick, this might be the one that there's just almost no need for a discussion, really, because I feel like here's Seattle. It seems pretty clear to me that Seattle is going to draft Tyree Wilson at 5 overall, unless I mean, D-line is no, I need to clarify the D-line is a need for him. But for that terrible pro day and that terrible comment that Jalen Carter had, it's now pretty much like, okay, Seattle, if they want to trade away 5, if the price is right. But I just don't see it. I feel like, but then again, Seattle did get Draymond Jones and Reed, both defensive linemen. So could always use an edge. And this may be a BPA pick, really, but at 5 overall, the best player available is Tyree Wilson. So Seattle, you get Tyree Wilson, edge rusher. So, so now we move on to the wild card pick, I call it. The Detroit Lions at 6. I don't want to get too deep in the trade talk because they may trade it, but with all the gambling controversy that is going on with them, with 3 of the 5 players that they got in trouble being wide receivers, you lost 2 of them for 6 games, and and one got suspended indefinitely, and you immediately fired. So I was thinking Jalen Carter was going to be there. Was just going to be the guy they were going to go for. They still could go Jalen Carter. Here, because defensive line is a need, corners a need. I mean, you did Edmund Mosley and Cam Sutton. You're welcome. Did get running back David Montgomery out of Chicago after you lost Jamal Williams. This is a tough one, actually. I don't know if they will go Jalen Carter because, again, it's a bad pro day. If anyone can get it, if anyone can help out Jalen Carter out there bad pro day, it's Dan Campbell. But with that game of the controversy and now having the fact that a wide receiver may have become the immediate need because you have no depth at wide receiver, all you have is St. Brown, really. And so, is this where Jackson Smith and Jigba goes? Is the $1 million question. Is he going to go at 6 right here? Or are they just going to go with Jalen Carter, which everyone suspected before the gambling controversy surfaced? I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Detroit's going to draft Jackson Smith and Jigba, because last year Detroit traded up and it set with drafted a wide receiver at 12 in front of everybody, which sent the draft upside down last year. If anyone's going to send the draft upside down this year at draft time, the draft's already kind of upside down because of the Green Bay Jets trade, sort of. I say Detroit goes way outside the box, and they're going to draft wide receiver in Jackson Smith and Jigba. So now we're on 7. And that would be the Las Vegas, Oakland, Los Angeles, Alcatraz Raiders. Now, I thought about this for a while, and I did a short on this on my YouTube channel, that the Raiders often go against the grain. And pretty much the grain of this pick, if so to speak, is quarterback. They did get Jimmy G, but you also lost Jarrett Stidham and Derek Carr. So your wide receiver depth is pretty. Though you did get Jimmy G, but you need a backup for him. Will Levis can be a serviceable backup for sure. However, this is the Raiders we're talking about. And they have a history of doing this, to go on against the grain, picking the guy that everyone's like, Most recently, probably the Clelin Ferrell pick from 2019. And he's already gone from the Raiders, so that shows you where that went. And this is why I think they won't draft quarterback, because of all the needs that are out there glaring, cornerback, Christian Gonzalez is out there. You have Christian Gonzalez, you got Devin Witherspoon, depends on scheme. You could select either one of those. Again, it's a scheme thing with them two, because they both have arguments on who should go first. Raiders need corner. They also need D-line. Jalen Carter would be still on the board here through my mock. Would they select him? I wouldn't be shocked. It is the Raiders. Or they could get smart and select offensive line. They need that in general. It could be tackle, guard, center. So this is where I think the Raiders are not going to pick quarterback like everyone suspects. I say they'll pass on quarterback. They may think Hendon Hooker might be there in the second round. That's a possibility. Now, as far as who do I think which do they go? Sorry, I just try to get my here. The Wi-Fi is kind of spotty here, so on Thursday it's going to probably do that quite a few times. But long story short, too late. I say Vegas is going to go weird, and they're going to draft Jalen Carter at 7. So that's that. Now we're to Atlanta. And I think it was kind of that one was like kind of like Seattle. It was like that was the easy one for me to try to figure out like who were they going to go for, because they've added quite a few pieces, especially in defense. And pretty much the main need, especially in this spot right here, you have Devin Witherspoon and you have Christian Gonzalez right there. I imagine they both will be there. They get the pick of the litter of that, and quarterback is their main need, if not edges. But I don't see Tyree Wilson being there. And edge is a deep class along with corner. But I think they're going to go corner here at 8. And the question is which one. Devin Witherspoon has arguments. And of course, Christian Gonzalez has arguments in his own right. It ultimately comes down to what scheme Atlanta is going to run. I'm not familiar too much of what kind of scheme they run. Most mock drafts have been saying that they're going to select Christian Gonzalez, which that makes sense. So does Devin Witherspoon. I'm going to go with everybody else. I'm just going to say Christian Gonzalez. I did a video of that one too, and I said Christian Gonzalez was like a definite pick. I'm just going to stick with that. Okay, now we're up to the number 9 pick, and that number 9 pick was initially the Carolina Panthers. It is now the Chicago Bears with that trade that they pulled off. And now we'll call it not a trade. That was a fleecing. Chicago fleeced the heck out of Carolina for that. And props to Chicago. They traded away the pick, which they didn't want the pick because they didn't need a quarterback. They knew there were going to be teams that wanted one. And Carolina put in the best offer. And so now so Chicago's there at 9, sitting pretty. They could trade that pick too, get more compensation. They already have 10 picks this year, with obviously the one here at 9. They got 3 on Friday and the rest on Saturday. Now here are their needs between the common sites. Corner is a need. There's you see Devin Witherspoon. That's probably where he'll go. But offensive tackle is also a need. Protect Justin Fields. This is probably Paris Johnson. Or defensive line, but I already said Jalen Carter is gone. So I think we can dismiss the D-line's need, which that can be addressed later. So what would Chicago do? What should they do? Should they go Paris Johnson at tackle, which is the best one available for that position, or do they go corner with Devin Witherspoon? That's a tough call. It really is a tough call because Devin Witherspoon is a top 10 talent, but so is Paris Johnson. I would say with Fields getting banged up, in his rookie year, sophomore year, he was getting a lot better. He was certainly doing a lot of the stuff he was actually drafted for. He was actually running the ball more, running very efficiently, even though they did finish with the worst record of the year, but they were a much better offense. They needed to get better defensively for sure. They've added some pieces. They did add DeMarcus Walker at edge. They got TJ Edmonds at linebacker. And then they added TJ Edwards, not Edmonds, but they did get Tremaine Edmonds at linebacker. However, was saying Paris Johnson, Paris Johnson, Paris Johnson. Oh, this is a you could flip a coin on that one. Really could. I'm going to say Paris Johnson. But if they drafted Devin Witherspoon, that's a good pick too. That was literally a 51-49 percentage on that. So now we are up to 10 with the Philadelphia Eagles, who acquired this pick via the New Orleans Saints. Philadelphia just coming off a tight Super Bowl loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. They may have lost quite a few players. They did keep more than maybe what some people figured. This is their basic needs. They lost Miles Sanders at running back, even though they were added Rashad Penny, but running back may be a need still. Keeping an eye on Bijan Robinson, excuse me. They kept Travis Kelce for center, probably for one more year, and that's it for him. Did re-sign Fletcher Cox, defensive tackle. Did re-sign James Bradbury, which was starting to think that maybe corner was going to be Philly's pick. Looking more and more at it, I mean, defensive tackle is a need, safety is a need, but then maybe that may be too early for Brian Branch. I mean, they could probably, if Philly wants Brian Branch for safety, which is again a need, they could trade down for that. But again, this is a non-trade mock. Where they draft best player available, which at that point it's probably going to be best player available might be Devin Witherspoon, but they've already re-signed both of their Pro Bowl corners, so they might not draft Witherspoon. And had they only gotten one of them, then maybe so. But now it's okay. Is it BPA? Do you go outside the box and you just draft Bijan Robinson, which that could happen? They need a running back. I wouldn't think they're going to rely on Rashad Penny after losing Miles Sanders, because the way that offense ran, the way the offense was so good was because of how dangerous they were on the run. Even though they had the outstanding the wide receiver talent in Smith and Brown and tight end Goddard. So this could be where, you know what, now that I think about it, I took one little peek down there on the needs, and I circled offensive guard and center. This could be where Skoronski goes. Now that I think about it, I'm going to say that this is, they may do a safe pick, and they're going to, yeah, guard is sort of a need. And, Kelce's going to be going after this year, even though Skoronski is not a center. But I can't see Skoronski's going to go somewhere, I would think. Even though mine says Bijan Robinson, Hart for some reason says Skoronski. Which he's listed as tackle, but he can be interior as well. So now we're up to number 11, and that would be the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee is in probably the last year of their window to make any kind of impact for any playoff run. They already lost A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry, maybe on his last wheels. And Ryan Tannehill, I think after this year, he is going to be gone. Now, me saying Skoronski to Philly may screw over Tennessee, and they may trade down because of that. Hear me out on this one. With Ryan Tannehill, I know you just selected Malik Willis, and right now it's pretty much developed poorly with him. And I feel for him because he was considered a first round talent, and he didn't get selected until 78, which is rough. And may have been one of the worst teams he could have went to because he's not developed well at all. He wasn't even under the right system. And not to mention, you had just traded your best weapon he could have had in A.J. Brown. So them drafting Will Levis is not out of the question. It's kind of in the far-fetched department. Defensive back is a need for them. So, offensive line, guard and tackle, that is a need for them as well. Paris and Skoronski, I've already selected that are gone. Wide receiver is a need for them as well. However, this may be a little too quick for them to select a Quentin Johnson or Jordan Addison. So, on that notion there, I think Tennessee is going to draft corner, and they're going to get Devin Witherspoon from Illinois. So now we're back to Houston, who I earlier said they were going to draft CJ, even though that entire pick, that whole scenario is in the air. But let's move on to 12. So you're back to 12. You've already addressed the quarterback. So let's talk about the edges and the wide receivers. Because some of their other needs is like center, defensive line, safety, and linebacker. Linebacker can be later. Safety, unless they fall in love with Brian Branch, which it'd be I think Brian Branch is going to be the only safety drafted in the first round because like the next guy is like considered mid-second round. That would be Antonio Johnson from Texas A&M or Sidney Brown from Illinois. He could go in the second round too. But defensive line, I don't see them drafting Kalijah Cansey. I can't say his name. I'll just call Cansey, the D line from Pitt. But he may be a late first, early second. So I think it's too early for a 12 is too early for that. What? Edge. This could be Nolan Smith. I would not be the least bit shocked if Houston also took trade offers for 12 as well and traded down for a wideout like a Quentin Johnston or Jordan Addison, like I mentioned for Tennessee. Nolan Smith is only 16 on or in the depth chart I wrote down here. So from 16 to 12, that's not a stretch. And again, edge is a need for Houston. So, Nolan Smith from Georgia or Lucas Van Ness from Iowa, he's in that same range. But I'm going to say Houston could go get a wideout at here with their second round pick. But I think this is going to be Nolan Smith at 12. So now we're to number 13, lucky number 13, that which did belong to the New York Jets, but as of yesterday, it is now the Green Bay Packers. I won't discuss the trade, but let's just talk about what Green Bay needs, and they have some needs, but they've got some picks to address those needs. So here's what's the main ones that I've been seeing. They do need guard, but I think the three main ones is wide receiver, tight end, get the weapons for Jordan Love now that you're pretty much full steam ahead with him, or safety. Now, I did a video prior to the trade with Aaron Rodgers that at 15, presuming that Jackson Smith-Njigba was not going to be there at 15, which in my mock, he's not there. I was thinking, like, they desperately need a safety. They need safety as much as they need wide receiver. And you did lose Allen Lazard, so you need some wide receivers in the worst way, but you also need safety in the worst way. And safety is a very thin class. Even though you did move up 2 spots, and now Broderick Jones is there, and protecting Jordan Love is never a bad idea. So some drafts I've been saying, it's probably Broderick Jones at 13. I won't say he's a bad pick for Green Bay. I don't think he's the pick for them. I don't think he's the pick they need. I think Brian Branch is more of a need than Broderick Jones because how bad their safety position is and how weak the class is itself. I mean, if you don't get Brian Branch now, you might as well wait to the 3rd round to get a safety and maybe grab his teammate Jordan Battle, like I said in my video. Tight end, you can get that in the 2nd round. Maybe Darnell Washington's going to fall to 42. He could. It's a gamble, but he could be there at 42, and you can get what here, and you can also get wideout at 45 if you so. I mean, Josh Downs from North Carolina, I could see him being there at 45 for the Packers, and you get your tight end, like I said. Again, Darnell Washington, he might be there. I don't see May or Kincaid being there because there's other teams like Dallas and Cincinnati that need a tight end. So for Green Bay, I'm going to say they're not going to take Broderick Jones. I think they're just going to get what they must need. And they should not fall for that BPA thing, which their GM is known to do. But I think they should get smart and select Brian Branch safety. Now we're to New England, number 14. Okay. So this one I might have to look at the paper about. Their needs. They do need a wideout, obviously. They did sign Juju, but they need other wideouts. It's not just him. Tight end, I can see that being a need. Bill Belichick loves his tight ends. Offensive tackle. This might be Broderick Jones. Now that the Jets have taken 2 steps back, now the Patriots are ahead of the Jets. Instead of waiting to see what the Jets to do, they don't have that problem anymore. And since I've already said that Broderick Jones was not going to be selected by Green Bay, even though a lot of mock drafts have been saying that, he's not a need for them. But he is a need for New England. He is very much a need for New England. Even though they did sign Riley Reif, but it's still a need. Safety is a need, but I already said Brian Branch was going to be gone by then. So that scratches that off. Wide receiver, you did sign Juju. You could get Quentin Johnston here, but I don't think that's the right scheme for him. For his skill set and Bill Belichick, the way wide receivers have been there lately. I mean, name me the last wideout that went to the Pro Bowl for him. Probably Julian Edelman, to answer that question. But that being said, I think New England's going to go get Broderick Jones. I'm not going to like it. But considering the trade that Green Bay and the Jets just made yesterday, I think the coast is clear for New England to go get Broderick Jones. So now that takes us to the Jets. Which for the Jets again, and they are in need of they're needing to tackle themselves, which they might have played their way out of getting Broderick Jones, because now New England doesn't have to worry about sweating the Jets to get their guy. Broderick Jones might be their guy. The Jets had him at 13, but now they traded that away. So I think Broderick Jones is go into the Pats. Now, what does the Jets do? Do they get Darnell Wright at 15, which is next best option? He's listed at 20 in some spots, or at least the ones I wrote, or at least the rankings I wrote down. Darnell Wright from 20 to 15. That's not a stretch at all. Safety was also a need for them, and again, Brian Branch is gone. Defensive line is a need, but again, like the next best option after Jalen Carter was Cansey from Pitt or Brian Brees from Clemson. But they're like late first round prospects. So, Brian Brees or Cansey going at 15. I mean, we've seen more bizarre picks. But offensive line is a glaring need for him. I mean, you lost a guard, Nate Herbig, to us and the Steelers. You did lose Nathan Shepard and Rankin's defensive line, but again at 15, you could probably trade down to go get either Cansey or Brees in the 20s, because I imagine they will be there. More on that later. But again, this is a no trade mock. So without the trade, I would say they are going to go just address an offensive line need, and they're going to draft Darnell Wright. I'm going to hate that if that happens, but it's a need. Darnell Wright is a need for the Jets. And for all we know, Darnell Wright might have been the guy they were eyeing the whole time anyway. And now we're at 16 with the Washington football team, or the Washington Red Hogs, which they should have been called that. They should have been called the Red Hogs, or just Hogs. Well, we're going to call them the Commanders. So congratulations, Washington. Now you're the Washington Douglas MacArthurs. But jokes aside, let's talk about Washington and their predicament, and not the outside one. Their needs, offensive line was a need, but a lot of them are going already. So I imagine they ain't going to try and, like, the next best option is probably Osiris Torrance or Anton Harrison, but they're both late first round and you're mid first round. So let's scratch those off. Well, you do have cornerback that is a need, so take a little quick peek here at the corners. So we already know that Devin Witherspoon and Christian Gonzalez, and I don't need to go any further. I took one look at it, and I don't know why I forgot about him. But, yeah, cornerback is a need, and the best one there, Joey Porter Jr. Some Steelers fans are going to hate that because they want to see Joey Porter's kid here, but Washington needs corner, and Joey Porter Jr. is likely going to be the best one available when it gets to them. So, sorry, I don't make the rules. And now we're to the pick that might give me a likely aneurysm or a heart attack or both. What are the Steelers going to do with the 17th overall pick? We do need offensive tackle. I think that's the number one need for the Steelers, because Kenny Pickett had like 2 or 3 concussions in his rookie year, and we're seeing, after seeing Tua considering retirement, Kenny Pickett's going down that same path if we can't protect his ass. That being said, do you draft your cornerback here? I don't think so. It is a deep class. You have 32 overall to start Friday night. That might be where you go get Emmanuel Forbes. Brian, I know you don't like that pick. Or Cam Smith at 32. So maybe we can hold off on corner. Now, defensive line is a need. That's for sure. Is it the main need? No. But when it gets to 17 and say Broderick Jones and Darnell Wright aren't there like I've done here, what do? What can you do? It's too early for a linebacker because there's no linebacker projected in the first round. Drew Saunders may be an early second at best. I mean, wide receiver could be a need here, but again, that could be later, not now. Unless they fall in love with Jordan Addison, who Kenny Pickett has thrown the ball to in Pitt. That's a wild card I'm throwing in there, but I just don't see them drafting White. I don't see them drafting Jordan Addison. This may be one the Steelers might trade down because who they want may not be there. Even a corner, they may want Joey Porter Jr., but I already said he wasn't going to be there at Washington. But again, if this was a no trader, you know what? They do need corners. Let me throw in Deontay Burks. I'm going to throw in Deontay Burks. Or Barks, excuse me. I said Burks. I'm thinking Traylon Burks from last year for Tennessee. My friend who's watching this is saying have him pick Van Ness, even though he's D-line / edge. I'm just saying they're probably going to draft corner at 17 because if what I'm saying comes to fruition, that is if Darnell Wright and Broderick Jones are not there at 17, they might not have a choice but to get a corner now and then go get maybe Anton Harrison if he's somehow there at 32. So, you know, it's not one to be happy with. I mean, if that came to fruition, I'd rather prefer them trade down. I know Brian says go get Luke Van Ness, but I'm not saying it's a horrible get, but he's not the main need. I mean, I don't see Omar Khan being, let's just drop BPA. Anyway, let's go to 18. The 18 would be Detroit with their second first round pick. I already had them taking Jackson Smith and Jigba. So now it's a big now what for them. D-line is a name, and I believe they have listed Van Ness as edge, but also / D-line, which you could complement, Aiden Hutchinson. So Detroit getting Lucas Van Ness at 18, I think that's a pretty decent get. They don't necessarily, well, they do need corner, but they did address that with Cam Sutton and Mosley. So I don't think they need corner right here. I think this is where Lucas Van Ness goes. So now we're to Jeff's team. We're up to Tampa Bay at 19. Tampa Bay, part of that god-awful division. I mean, again, they did acquire Baker Mayfield, so they got a reasonable quarterback to contend with this division that consists of Derek Carr, Taylor Heineke, if he's the week 1 starter. If not, Desmond Ridder will be for Atlanta. And Andy Dalton, who I presume will be week 1 starter, and Bryce Young. Tampa's needs offensive line, safety, D-line, wide out and tight end is a need. Linebackers need, but again, no one's picking linebacker first round. I'd be stunned if that happened. Even though they did make some re-signs, they did re-sign Levante David. And Jamal Dean, corner, they re-signed him. This is probably going to be an outside the box pick, if you will. Again, safety, Brian Branch gone. So can't see in Tampa drafted in them. One more look. D-line, you know what? I'm going to say Cansey's going to go to Tampa. I'm going to say Kancey. D-line is a big need for them. They can use all the help they can get at defense. So Pittsburgh's Elijah Kancey to Tampa. Now, I could say we're at the number 20, but this is number 20. Okay, number 20 is Seattle. Excuse me. I was going to say that 20 was Miami, but no, actually it's Seattle. I almost misread that. This would be Seattle's second first round pick, one of the few teams that have 2 first round picks. So let me find Seattle here real fast. I said they were going to draft Tyree Wilson, which was going to be BPA at number 5. I think that's the consensus pick at 5. They don't need quarterback. Could use corner, but I don't see them picking the two main ones at 5. But anyway, we dressed the. Let's see. Okay, wideout is a need for them. Okay, now we're getting to the wide receivers. I think this is, I think, where the wide receivers are going to start going. Since they need that wide receiver 3 to complement Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Now the question is which one. You can make the argument for Zay Flowers. Obviously, the two I have in mind is Quentin Johnston and Jordan Addison. It'd be awfully fitting if Jordan Addison, who's coming off of USC, would go to USC's old coach in Pete Carroll. And I'm one for irony. Addison, Seattle. Now, this was going to be number 21, where Miami was going to select. But tampering charges have cost them their first round pick. So there will be no selection for Miami. No one gets that selection. So we skip on ahead to the Los San Diego Angeles Chargers. Now, I haven't mentioned him. I've only mentioned him briefly. But I think the Chargers are in the driver's seat for running back from Texas, Bijan Robinson. You have the Austin Eckler thing going on. I don't know if we don't know if he will be there this year or if he actually does get out. He may be traded on draft day for all we know. And if that's the case, that's almost a shoo-in that, okay, they're going to go for Bijan. And I think even without a trade, I think Chargers are in the driver's seat for Bijan unless trades happen from Dallas or Cincinnati or Philly wants him because, again, running back is a need. But they're in a weird spot at 10 to draft running back in the top 10 because it has a running back hasn't gone top 10 since Saquon Barkley. And basically this league is, okay, get your wide receivers and tight ends loaded up. And running backs is pretty much optional. So that being said, Chargers, with the Eckler thing going on, I can't see this being anybody other than Bijan Robinson. So, there you go. Bijan Robinson to the Chargers. Okay. And now we go to none other than the Crow Birds of Baltimore. The Baltimore Ravens. Who, with the Lamar Jackson situation, is in quite the limbo. But let's ignore the Lamar Jackson situation and let's just focus on 22 here for a moment. Needs cornerback, wide receiver, guard, an offensive line they could use, but that could be later. Running back is also a need in there, even though they did sign Justice Hill. Wide receiver would be, even though wide receiver you did add OBJ, Bateman can't stay healthy, and we don't know what kind of situation or how healthy OBJ can stay. So I think this is going to be wide out. I think this is where Quentin Johnston's going to go. I think this will be, like I said, like wide receivers are going to start going here. It's not going to be like last year where it went like 8, 10, 11, 12, then and so forth. But I think they do, even though with OBJ, I think you got to get a wide out here. And Quentin Johnston, I think, is at this point, he's the best one available. So now we're to Minnesota. Now, you may have noticed, if you've been watching this whole time, you noticed, I'm like, wait a minute. There's a certain quarterback that hasn't been selected yet. Why haven't I put Will Levis in? Why haven't I had Will Levis selected? Because I think he will fall. I don't see him being selected in the top 10. I don't think teams are that desperate for him. However, Minnesota, after this year, from what I've been gathering, they're going to be through with Kirk Cousins. He will be gone. He's had plenty of chances, and he's only garnered a total of one playoff win, I believe, since he got there and he got in that big contract. And it's not like he's been short on talent. He's had Adam Thielen. He's had Dalvin Cook. He's had Justin Jefferson. Not all his fault. Defense has been terrible as well. But I think after this year, this is where Kirk Cousins' time in Minnesota has come to an end. After this year, I think they're going to move on from him. And I think this is where Will Levis is going to get selected. Again, that could be just due to it could be just trades. You know, there could be just a trade up for him, but again, I'm just doing one without trades. So without the trade, I would say Will Levis is going to fall into the 20s. Not out of the first round, but his stock's going to take a little timber, and he'll fall all the way to Minnesota. And Minnesota will get their future guy after Kirk Cousins' time is run out, which I suspect will be after this year. And now we're to 24, the Jacksonville Jaguars. The team who selected 1 overall for the previous 2 years. And one of those picks being Trevor Lawrence. Had quite the year last year, especially in the second half of the year where the entire team caught fire. And got on a real good run to win the division. Came back from 27-0 down to the Chargers to win that game. So what does Jacksonville do with the mid-20s pick? Well, we have it. Their basic needs are edge, offensive guard, or a corner. Now, this could be where O'Cyrus Torrence, interior lineman from Florida, this could be where he goes. This could be it for him. He's in the late 20s, but we're at 24. So I like giving like that 5-spot cushion where it's like, okay, he was here, but he went there. It's like, it's not too much of a stretch. The stretch is being 24 and selecting a guy who some guys had at 40. You know what I mean? But corner, I already have Barks going to the Steelers. Can't imagine this is where Emmanuel Forbes is going to go. Same with Cam Smith. This could be edge, actually. Now I'm thinking about it. This could be edge, and this might be actually where Miles Murphy. I haven't mentioned his name all night. How about Jacksonville getting Miles Murphy, edge rusher from Clemson, who's been slated in like the 19th spot here in my rankings. Other needs have happened, so a little drop off that's just going to happen. So, but 19 from 19 to 24 is not a drastic drop off. So there you go. Yeah, Jacksonville. I think their need is edge, and I think that's going to be Miles Murphy, especially when you lost Arden King. So, or Arden Key, not King. So now we're to the New York Football Giants, or some guys would call them the New Jersey Giants. Technically are playing in New Jersey. Very impressive year this past year. Although they're in kind of a limbo that Saquon Barkley is under the tag, and he says he's not going to play under the tag. He'll hold out. So you got that problem. You did sign Danny Dimes to that contract. So what would their play be? Offensive line's a need. Wide receiver is a need. That's actually a big need, really. But so is a corner. But again, I don't see Emmanuel Forbes. He's pretty much next on the list. I don't see him going to the Giants. I see Emmanuel Forbes maybe being early day 2. So this might be another wideout coming off the board right here for the Giants. And I haven't said Zay Flowers. And Giants at 25 on my ranking list here. Zay Flowers 24. Zay Flowers. Going to the Big Apple. So now we're to the Dallas Cowboys. Well, Dallas' plate is pretty interesting. They re-signed Tony Pollard, but he's coming off a bad injury, so we don't know how healthy he'll be for week 1. And it sounds like by June they're going to release Ezekiel Elliott. You also lost tight end. You lost Alton Schultz. So we'll put tight end is very much a need for you guys. You could go offensive guard and Osiris Torrance from Florida. However, although getting offensive line, never a bad idea. I feel this is going to be where the first tight end of the draft is going to come off. Now, which one? Because we got a couple of good ones to pick up. We got Notre Dame's Michael Mayer, or we have Utah's Dalton Kincaid. And I imagine one's going to go here, and the other one's going to go 2 picks later. More on that in a minute. This may come down to, offensive scheme. What's the offensive coordinator going to have? What does he want out of his scheme for tight ends? I'm going to say that this is going to be Michael Mayer. Just as a hunch, no like rules, because you could go either way. There's really, I think between the two, I don't know if it's really a wrong choice. But again, for Dallas being in the spot that they're in front of Cincinnati, feel like this may be more of a, it's again, it's a scheme pick. But gotta think, this is, it has to be tight end, I think, for Dallas. And as a hunch between Mayer and Kincaid, I'm going to go with Mayer. So now we're up to 27, and that would be the Buffalo Bills. Coming off yet another heartbreaking, I don't know about heartbreaking, this was just a bad playoff performance against Cincinnati in that divisional playoff loss where Cincinnati flat out outplayed them the entire game. Their basic needs: defensive line, linebacker, get that later. Could go get a wideout. Secondary is a need as well. And I'm not, whether DeMar Hamlin is healthy to go or not, I think it's still a need. Even though you didn't add Jordan, you didn't manage to keep Jordan Poyer. If a linebacker is going to go in the first round, it may be right here because they did lose Tremaine Edmonds. It's far-fetched, but Drew Saunders could go right here. Now, there's always going to be somebody who you would look at as a second-round prospect and go, why would they get selected first round? This might be the area where those second-round prospects may get picked first round because, the team needs this. And I don't think Buffalo wants to wait for a linebacker after losing Tremaine Edmonds. And here, even though he's listed on 39 on my paper here, I mean, he might be listed much higher on other papers. So out of Arkansas, Drew Saunders, I think if a linebacker did go first round, I'd be stunned. But at the same time, if one will go, it's here. And that's where I'll have it. I'll put a linebacker right here at 28th overall to Buffalo, Drew Saunders. Oh, excuse me, 27. 28 is coming up right here. It's Cincinnati. I'll make it brief because Cincinnati was, okay, which tight end was Dallas going to take? And Cincinnati was going to take the other one. Because they lost Hayden Hurst, and tight end was quietly it was a good piece, a good keystone piece for that offense for it to work. I know Joe Burrow has three good wide receivers in Boyd, Chase, and Higgins to throw to. They could have used a running back, but Bijan Robinson wasn't going to be there unless they trade up for him and if they really value him, need him that much. You did lose Samaje Perine, but with the no trade, this is Dalton Kincaid. So now we're to number 29, and this pick has been traded, I think, 4 times now. This was San Fran. Then it went to Denver. Then it went to Miami, I believe, for the Trey Lance pick. Then it went to Denver for the Bradley Chubb trade. And now it belongs to New Orleans for the Sean Payton signing. I believe that's right. So we're on the New Orleans Saints, and they get a late first-round pick. Could have been earlier. It could have been 10 overall if they didn't trade to Philly. Here, but that's in the past now. So here are their basic needs. They could have used a tight end too, but I don't see them drafting Darnell Robinson. Defensive line is a big need. Guard is also a need. Osiris Torrance. It could be him. Could be Osiris Torrance. Um, but also D line. Bro, I haven't selected Brian Brees yet, have I? No, I haven't. I think Brees should be selected in the first round. To tell you the truth, I think his stock's falling a little bit, and I just don't quite get why. So, because for a while he was considered mid first round. Now he seems to have fallen off to where he might even be taken in the first round, and I just don't see that. Or Brisset, or I think it's Brisset. I think that's how you say, not Brees, but I just look at that name here and just think it's Brees. So sorry if I butchered that last name, but here you go. New Orleans is going to draft him, Brisset, at 29. And now we're back to Philly with their second first round pick. And earlier I had them taking Peter Skoronski as their interior here just to ramp up that offensive line, which again, never a bad thing to do that. So now going back to where this is a wild pick I'm going to do here. And I told Brian, and I know you're watching this, Brian, I told you about this wild prediction happening. I don't know if you were against it, but I'm going to say to address that running back need after losing Miles Sanders, they're going to draft Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama, who's projected early-ish second round. He's 36 here on this paper, which is like fourth or fifth pick in the second round. I think Philly is going to value that because they only have 6 picks this year. They don't have a lot of picks after 30. They have like 4 more picks, and it's not a lot. So if they really want to address that running back need, even though they did get Petty, excuse me, I think they will draft running back, but it's not the one everyone is thinking. They're thinking, oh, they can just get Bijan at 10. There's other needs at 10 they can address first. That's why I thought they're going to address Skoronski and address the offensive line need so they can go then go get that running back. So Brian, I know you're going to get a kick out of this, but Philly's going to select Jameer Leroy Jethro Gibbs. Just Jahmyr Gibbs, by the way. NCIS joke for anyone that's watching. And last but not least, we're to the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Now you may be thinking, well, the defending champs, they shouldn't have too many needs. Well, they have a few more needs than what people may think. Because you did lose Orlando Brown to the Ravens. Even though they did pick up Jawan Taylor to replace that. Good luck. Lost Juju. So wide receivers also just became a need, even though you did just get Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore last year. So I wouldn't say maybe wide receiver was a desperate need. I mean, Patrick Mahomes seems to be like, okay, he can find anybody other than Travis Kelce. It wasn't just a Tyreek Hill thing that made Patrick Mahomes good. Mahomes is just awesome. He'll find Juju. He'll find Toney. He'll find Sky. He'll find Kelce. He'll find any running back that's behind him. Heck, if Andy Reid can put on a helmet, he'll find him. But, offensive tackle is a need. Edge is a need. I think those two, maybe they can address those two first. Edge could be Will McDonald, the fourth out of Iowa State. But it also could be Anton Harrison, which, oh boy, please don't take Anton Harrison. If we're not going to get Darnell Wright or Broderick Jones, the Steelers, I mean, sweet Jesus, just draft Edge. So just for the sake of my sanity, I'm just going to say Kansas City is going to draft Edge. And they're going to draft Will McDonald, Haddow Farm, the fourth. So there you have it. There's my mock draft with no trades. I said before I started this here that I was going to discuss, trades that could happen on draft night. There could be a trade coming between now and before draft day, or before 8:00 Thursday. I mean, could Trey Lance be traded? Which along with Lamar Jackson, has been the $64,000 question. Trey Lance being traded from San Fran, I've been mixed about that. I feel like Trey Lance hasn't been given a fair trial. Like, he hasn't had enough starts to where San Francisco I feel like San Francisco almost can't make a fair judgment about, and by that I mean, like, I'm mixed about because what teams is going to want, because San Francisco is going to ask for some pretty steep compensation, I think, because they gave him a ton for him. They gave him a lot to go get him at 3 in 2021. But sorry, I was responding to a text message there, but I think the Trey Lance one, it could happen, but I feel like San Fran may be asking for too much because they gave up so much. And that's why I think that one could fall through, and it's not going to happen. Which I think that's best for them anyway. Because you got Brock Purdy, who's coming off elbow worked on. And I think it was a similar surgery to what Big Ben had to go through. And it almost cost him his career, even though he was in the latter stages anyway. But, I mean, that takes a while for it to heal. I mean, that's... So considering that you want to trade that pick away, I mean, I'm hearing that they could trade with Houston for 2. That one was one of those wild ones thrown out there, and I thought, that's a 5 to 10% shot. But I'm mixed about it. I'm more leaning toward no. Trey's just not going to get traded. I'm like 30% or lower on Trey Lance getting traded. But even whether it's tomorrow or Thursday or whatever. Because I think what they're going to ask for, no one's going to bite. So the Trey Lance one, no, not buying it. Lamar Jackson, is he going to get traded between now and? Is he going to get traded? Lamar may have cost himself his chance of getting traded. Um, does he deserve the money that Jalen Hurts is getting? There's arguments for yes. There's arguments for no. The problem is that this is why athletes get agents, so they can so they can deal with this stuff. I mean, when you're being your own agent, it can sometimes be your worst enemy. And I think this is what Lamar is starting to learn, is that he is probably his own worst enemy as far as getting the deal done. Because now that they put the non-exclusive tag on him, I believe that's what it was they put on him. It's the one that if they were to trade him, then Baltimore automatically gets 2 first-round picks from the team that gets him. So Baltimore pretty much has him handcuffed to where it's either play here or take a seat, either play for us or stay at home. I wouldn't be surprised if Lamar stayed home, but I warned him. But I issue this warning to him. I know he's not going to watch this, but just remember Le'Veon Bell had the same idea, and ask him how that worked out. So is Lamar going to get traded between this moment and midnight Friday, or going in midnight Thursday, going into Friday? That's probably a smaller chance of happening than Trey Lance. Derrick Henry, is he going to get traded from Tennessee? I put that in the same range as Lamar Jackson, is saying not likely. For running backs, they have a life. Their life expectancy is not long, and Derrick Henry's starting to. He's not over the hill, but he's starting to see. Yeah, but he's starting to see with the bottom of the hill, if you know what I mean. He's got maybe 1 or 2 good years of Derrick Henry being King Henry left, whether that's with Tennessee or somewhere else. I don't see Henry getting traded, and I was hearing that the GM for Tennessee said he wasn't getting calls about that anyway, so I would scratch that off. Now for teams trading their current positions. Let's start with Houston at 2, which has been the wild one. Is Houston going to trade the number 2 overall pick? I can pull out a coin right now and I would flip that, and it would. That's where I put that. Like, you can argue trading that pick if you're not sold on CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson or Will Levis or heck, if Houston wants to wait until, let me see, I think Houston's 33 overall, right? Yeah, Houston's 33 overall, and even if Houston waited, if they didn't get, a quarterback at 2 and they just drafted Will Anderson and get a wideout at 12, they could wait to 33. And I believe Hendon Hooker will be there at 33. Not just because I mocked it, did a mock draft about that, but Hendon Hooker, I think, will be there at 33. If Houston's like, you know what? Instead of CJ or Levis or Richardson, what about Hendon Hooker? It's one of those it's like, yeah, we're hearing about that. We're hearing about him, but what about him? Houston passing without even trading, can get, Will Anderson, which edge is a need. Edge is very much a need. Their 3 basic needs are wide receiver, edge, and quarterback. Even without trading, they can go get those guys. I know I had them pick, Stroud. I did have him pick Stroud. I did have him pick edge Nolan Smith out of Georgia. If I followed that,
by following that method right there. Jalen Hyatt, Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee would consequently be available there at 33. They can go get him then if they follow, that theory, that method, quarterback, edge, then wideout. Even though Houston, they need a lot more than just those three guys, whichever three they so desire. But I feel like Houston, I think I'm making an argument why they shouldn't trade away the second pick, because, I know there's the compensation, sure, and it may depend on the whoever is calling. Again, it's one of those, it's the Bob Barker thing. It's like, if the price is right. So I feel like Houston can still benefit from not trading, even though they can benefit from trading. So Houston's not, I don't feel like Houston's under a lot of pressure to trade away 2 overall. Now to Arizona for 3. Like I said, no matter what Arizona does, I feel like they're going to be the worst team in the league this year. There's other teams that have arguments. I think I just mentioned one of them in Houston. It's going to be a rough go for them. It may be a rough go for Indianapolis if their draft doesn't go right, or I imagine it's going to be Anthony Richardson. I just don't see Houston passing on CJ, but we'll see in less than 48 hours. But again, back to Arizona. That might be the pick I think that is the most likely that will get traded out of the ones that are talked about the most. I can see Arizona just trading away the 3 and just say, you know what, screw it. We would love Will Anderson, but at the same time, Will Anderson's not going to take us from 3 wins to 7 wins. They only have 8 picks in this draft. They have just this one. They have 3 day 2s and just only 4 day 4s. So I would say, if anything here, I think Arizona, if they get the right suitor, which if someone wants, it doesn't have to be a quarterback. Maybe someone wants Will Anderson, like a team who does need edge pretty bad. Because again, he's the top prospect that's not a quarterback. And again, and going back to Houston, what if Houston does pass on CJ? Then the phones are going to be off the hook in Arizona's war room, with GM saying, okay, what are you willing to give up for 3? Because there's definitely some quarterback hungry teams that are looking at CJ and saying, if he's there at 3, I want on the phone with Arizona. Even if it's Indianapolis for 1 spot. Because Indy would love to have CJ. I would like to think that they would love to have CJ. So 2 and 3 overall, those are wild picks, because what if Houston does not pick QB, which some are suspecting, and they either trade that or draft Will Anderson, which again, edge is a need for them. So, yeah, those 2 picks right there. If Houston either trades away the 2 or they just say no to CJ, then the draft may turn upside down from right there. And all those mock picks that I put on there here get thrown on the wayside, which it's fun to do mock drafts, but because you're probably looking at probably maybe 10 of those picks even being right. I looked at Detroit at number 6. I was wondering if they were going to trade away that pick after all that gambling controversy that's been bestowed on them. Even though with one of the guys wasn't even there. He's in Washington now, but he's been suspended indefinitely. 2 wideouts, including Jameson Williams, has been suspended 6 games, and they're the safety and the wideout that indefinitely got suspended. Detroit fired them like 10 minutes later. I was wondering, is Detroit going to pick wideout at 6 because of that, or are they just going to trade out of there and they want to collect themselves? That's another wild pick. There was another scenario that I was talking with Brian about this, where is someone going to trade into the top 10 to go get Bijan Robinson in the top 10 to cut here to cut in front of Philly in case Philly was wanting to go for him. And that could happen. I'm looking at that as more likely than the Trey Lance thing happening and more likely than Lamar Jackson getting traded. Now, is Bijan a top 10 prospect? And most sports know, including mine. But there are teams that could use a quarterback. Or not quarterback, running back, excuse me. God, that quarterback talk has my words backwards. But teams like Cincinnati or Dallas or even the Chargers trading into the top 10 with, trading with a Detroit or Vegas or Chicago to get in front of Philly so they can go get Bijan so Philly doesn't get him. Especially I can see Dallas doing it because Dallas wanted to get Kayvon Thibodeau if the Giants didn't take him. So I can see Dallas being on the phone with a Detroit or a Vegas or Chicago so they can go get Bijan. Now is there going to be any trades for wide receivers? Like there was a craze going on last year of that. Where, what was it? 11, 12. I think 16. They were all like trade up or downs for a wideout. Oh, 18 as well, because 18 was the A.J. Brown trade where Tennessee took Treylon Burks. I don't know if you're going to see. I don't think you're going to see as crazy. I imagine there's going to be a couple trade ups for a wide receiver. If Njigba is still somehow on the board, if Detroit passes on him, maybe someone want to jump into Philly's spot at 10. Like say someone does trade for Bijan. And Philly's like, well, we 1 out of 10 now. Anyone want it to go get maybe Njigba? If Detroit says no to him, because Njigba should be the first wideout off the board. It's a matter of when. I feel like the earliest he'll go is 6 to Detroit, and I feel like a team will trade up to go get him. I wouldn't. New England might trade up. They need wideout. Again, they do have Juju, but you had Juju with Njigba. You give Mac Jones some weapons. Actually let him boogie. Who else needs wideouts? Baltimore could use one. Baltimore might trade up. It'd be a steep trade. It'd be quite a jump though, because they're in the 20s into saying between the 8 to 10 range. Houston would love Njigba if he fell to 12. but Houston may have to trade up a little if they want him. Because again, I don't see Njigba going to 12. I thought he was going to fall to 15 to the Packers, but the more I thought about it, and after that Aaron Rodgers trade went down, it was like, and Njigba's not going to fall to 15 unless something weird pops up about him. And I didn't figure in when I did the Njigba video. I didn't think of Tennessee. Tennessee needs wideout badly. I mean, that's just clear cut right there. They need wide receiver in the worst way. But yeah, what other trades could happen? Like I threw in my mock draft here, I threw in that wild thing that a second running back was going to go in the first round, and Jahmyr Gibbs going to Philly if they weren't going to go with Bijan. That's one of my crazy predictions, is that a second running back is going to go in the first round. I did say I would be stunned if a linebacker went in the first round, even though I did mock draft Buffalo taking one. Oh, what else? I think anything beyond beyond 15, any like trade ups there, it's just more of like, okay, let's just it's pretty much playing leapfrog there at that point. It's like, because last year was so crazy that everyone was leapfrogging everyone for wide receiver. We might not see that again for a while in the draft. But I'll close this out about my Steelers. For the Steelers, I did a mock draft. My mock here was they were gonna draft Deontay Barks, even though he's like projected in the mid-20s. But we need a cornerback. We do need corner. Offensive tackle is, I think, our number one need. But from what I've been gathering, that Aaron Rodgers trade might have screwed it up to where I do think Paris Johnson's going to go top 10. Skoronski may go top 10. Depends on, team and scheme. I still feel like Philly's the team. I was thinking Tennessee, but they need wide receiver first. Or if they really want to get the eventual replacement for Tannehill, they were going to draft Will Levis. But for the Steelers, they need that blindside blocker to protect Kenny Pickett, because Dan Moore is not it. It's been proven. He's given up 7 sacks last year. That's unacceptable. We need a blindside blocker now. I would love it for it to be Broderick Jones, but at 17, if you want him, you're probably going to have to call up. Who would you call up for that? You're not going to get a hold. Tennessee isn't going to say yes. I would say you're probably going to have to get a hold of either Atlanta or Chicago, maybe Philly. If you want to jump up for a tackle, which at that spot it might be Paris Johnson. Or if you do want corner, if Joey Porter Jr. is available at 17, then I would say, why not? Go for him. If he's there. I would say Joey Porter Jr. if those 4 linemen in Skoronski, Johnson, Jones, and Wright, if they're all gone. And I already did the mock that they were going to be all gone by then. Hopefully Washington does not prove me right, and they're going to draft Porter Jr. right before us. So that's pretty much what I mean. Linebacker is a need, but we can get linebacker in the third round. Or not third round, with our second round pick. At 49, we can get Trenton Simpson at 49, and if we can't get that tackle, then we get corner at 17. Hopefully, if it has to be a corner, hopefully it is Joey Porter Jr. He'll probably be the best one available by then. And hope that Anton Harrison is there at 32 and Kansas City doesn't draft him, which I have a dark feeling they will draft him unless they prefer edge more. So I'm going to cut it off right there. I think that the test run was successful. So yeah, I'm going to cut it off right here and be ready for Thursday. See you then.